Hello everybody, welcome back. So our next set of 4 episodes will be on cheese making. I'm making this video because this recipe was requested by a friend of mine from New Zealand, Melissa Goldthorpe. So for the ingredients, you're going to be needing something called Mesophilic Starter Culture, 4 litres of full fat cow's milk. Farmer's Own is the brand I use. They're a lot cheaper than other ones I find. 1 tablet of Rennet. Now I think originally this stuff comes from sheep or something, but the supplier I use makes a vegan version and this is it. Salt for the brine we're going to be making for the feta cheese at the end. Again, I get this from my supplier, but you can use normal salt. This bag of mixed herbs again comes from my supplier. I'll go more into detail about who that is later on in the video. You will need 2 ml of calcium chloride. I have a bottle of sterilizer which I use. If I'm feeling lazy, sometimes I don't use it, but it is advisable. So first up, you are going to need to sanitize all of your equipment. Depending on the type of sanitizer you are using or the brand will depend on the directions. With my one, it was a certain amount of capfuls to a certain amount of water. You stick your equipment in and let it sit for roughly 5 minutes. This step, even though I skip it sometimes when I'm feeling lazy, it is quite important. I sometimes just skip it when I do preserves and stuff as well. You're supposed to sterilize the jars, but like with cheese especially, you're making something that is encased in mold and stuff, so it's always better just to be safe. So yeah, make sure you sanitize your equipment if you're going to make cheese. Right, so this is the first step in the actual cheese making. So you're going to need a long thermometer and a very, very large pot. And in this pot, over a low heat element, you're going to pour your 4 litres of milk, so both of the bottles of 2 litre milk. Once you have very slowly heated the milk to 37 degrees Celsius or 99 degrees Fahrenheit, you're then going to need to add your 2 ml of calcium chloride. So that comes in a bottle in liquid form. You use a plastic pipette with measurings along the side to tell you where the 2 ml mark is. Directly after this, you are going to stir in the 1 sachet or 1 teaspoon of Mesophilic Starter Culture. Directly after this, you're then going to want to add your Rennet, and the way you do that is you have 1 tablet of Rennet, and remember this is a vegetarian, well vegan version basically. You stick it in 1/4 cup of cool non-chlorinated water. That's what the booklet says, basically 1/4 cup of water. I use my filtered water, but whatever. Now this will not dissolve fully, so you add it to the water and you stir it around, and then when it's broken up you add it to the milk. That's just to make sure it goes through the milk properly, otherwise it won't work obviously. After you have poured in the diluted Rennet, you are going to need to stir it for at least 1 minute, because you've just added 3 different things to the milk all at once, so you really need to make sure that this is stirred through properly. Just drop the temperature on and make sure it's fully incorporated into the heated milk. At this point, you're going to need to allow the milk to sit for 1.5 hours at the same temperature, 37 degrees Celsius or 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the way you do this to make sure that the temperature is maintained is you stick it in the incubator, you put the bowl in there, you fill it full of milk, and then in between the incubator and the bowl you stick in the water at the correct temperature, and then you place the lids on top, and by doing that you're just encasing the heat. It says in the booklet to check every so often just to make sure that the temperature remains the same, but you know, if you take the lid off you're releasing heat for a start, and I've found that it will normally, like an incubator with that, will easily retain the correct temperature for a couple of hours, so 1.5 hours is no problem. You don't need this kit, I find it very handy, but like if you don't have an incubator, all you need to do is use a water bath, fill up a sink with the correct temperature, put the bowl in there, have a lid over the bowl, but in that scenario you are most definitely going to have to come back at regular intervals to check the temperature. And you know, while this is a lengthy process to make cheese, if you have an incubator and you can just walk away and leave it, that is easier to go and then do other stuff than constantly having to hover around and keep a close eye on it. So I find that the incubator works really, really well. When 1.5 hours are up, the milk should be in a firm set. So now you're going to need to cut the curd into 1 centimeter / 1/2 inch cubes using your curd knife and leave to rest for 1 further hour at the same temperature again. So after cutting this, you're going to need to check the water in between the bowl and the incubator, heat it up or reheat it or tip it out and get more water, whatever's necessary. I think all I did, I think I tipped it out and just put in brand new water. Whatever works. This is perhaps the most tedious part of the process. Once you've waited yet another hour, you need to take the lid off and stir the curds every 5 minutes for 30 minutes. So for half an hour, all I do is I set my phone alarm to go off every 5 minutes for the next half an hour, and whenever the alarm goes off, I go out and stir the curds. So after 30 minutes of stirring your curds every 5 minutes for the last half an hour, the curds are now ready to be scooped into your feta molds. Now my feta molds came with my kit. I also have a draining mat which also came from the kit underneath the mold, so that when I tip the feta curd in, like so, all the liquid will go out the holes in the sides of the feta molds and the bottom, and it'll go straight to the draining mat as well and onto the sink or wherever it is that you've got them in. I just put mine next to the sink because I've got a little rim and a metal part around that part of the bench, so basically no liquid will drip onto the floor or anything, it just all goes straight into the sink. So that's what I use, but you can do it in a sink and it'll go straight down the drain, like whatever works for you. So you want to make sure you can get every last bit of curd out of the pot into these feta baskets or containers. Once you have done that, there are a couple of different ways that you can make feta taste differently. Obviously the kind of milk you use can make a difference. We're using cow milk. If you change that to goat milk or buffalo milk, that's going to make the feta change in flavour and texture and stuff. But also, you can do marinated feta, where you marinate it in oil and herb, or you can simply mix herbs into the feta. So I'm going to do one of these containers with just normal feta, and the other one I'm going to mix mixed herbs into. Now again, I get this bag of mixed herbs from the kit, and I can't remember what's in them. I'll go and get the pack and read them out for you, and you can either get your own separate herbs, put them together to make the same kind of mixture. But in all reality, feta kind of goes with any kind of herb. You could stick anything in there. You could put in chopped chilies if you really wanted to. Like you can change the flavour in all kinds of ways. Okay, so I found the packet. So mixed herbs, dried chopped leaves of sage, thyme, marjoram and sweet basil. Either lay into the curds when moulding, mix into soft fresh cheeses, or roll onto the outside of finished cheeses. So herbs can be used in all number of ways, and I have seen soft cheeses sold in the supermarket before. They've been mixed with chili and stuff. So I mean, you could do whatever you wanted. And I find this is a good mix for feta cheese. I just like using this packet that they supply because it is really good. If you are growing fresh herbs in your garden and stuff and you want to use particular flavours into your cheese, that would be amazing, and fresh would taste amazing as well. So this is one of the advantages to making your own fresh cheeses and stuff. Like, a lot of people consider it a hassle, but when you think of in terms of presents, like the awesome presents, I've made fresh cheese for people before and given them for Christmas and birthday presents. It never fails to like amaze people. But also, if you're very particular with your taste, like I am, and you want, very particular flavours in there or a certain twist, you can do that. You can do whatever the heck you want if you're making this stuff yourself. And that's why I love creativity and like making your own things from scratch, because you can do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. So as you can see, we now have one container full of plain feta curds, and we have another one full of herb feta curds, and they're resting on the drain mat to dry. For protection, while you're waiting for them to drain, you can stick them in a pot. You can stick them back into the incubator. Because I'm using the side of the sink where it's metal so they can just drip straight into the sink and down the drain, I literally just cover it with some muslin cloth. Once they've been draining for 3 hours, we're then going to need to flip them over, as you can see here, and that's just to let them drain out the top as well, because they're never going to do it if you're only sitting on one side. Cover them up again or do whatever you have to do, and this time they're going to need to be drained overnight. So just leave them there or stick them in the incubator overnight, let them drain completely. Meanwhile, you're going to need to mix salt and water and vinegar together to make a 12% brine solution. This brine is going to have to sit overnight by itself as well in the refrigerator before you can use it. So you're going to be needing to mix 2 cups of boiled water with half a teaspoon of vinegar and 2 ounces of salt. So the next morning, now remember your cheese so far has rested in the cheese molds overnight by themselves, and your brine has sat in the refrigerator by itself overnight as well. The next morning you can then put the two together, so just stick your block of cheese into the water. Depending how much you have, obviously, because I need a couple of batches of brine for those couple of blocks of cheese. You can double the amount of brine that you make easily by doubling the ingredients, obviously. That is the feta cheese after it has sat in the brine for 5 hours. You have to do 5 hours at least. If you leave it in there for too long, the cheese can get outrageously salty. When you're covering the feta cheese, just cover it till it just covers the top of the block and don't fill up the container anymore. If you need the feta cheese to keep for a while, because this is fresh stuff, it's not going to last as long as the stuff you buy at the store, but you can store it in the salt brine still. You don't have to get rid of the brine. Otherwise, what I do is I have a vacuum machine, and what that does is, you use the bag, a vacuum bag, you stick the food in, and then it'll just vacuum seal it. And I think this is better because then, after 5 hours the cheese is more than salty enough, so you really don't need to leave it in there for any longer. And so this will stop it from going over salty. Although, the fresh salty flavour of the feta cheese is one of the things that's amazing about making this stuff yourself. It tastes divine. But, yeah, you're holding in the vacuum bag, it'll last like double or triple its normal lifetime, so I think that's really handy and useful, but that's what I do anyway. So now I'm going to show you yet another way to store feta, and cheese will stay good for the longest time if you do this. But also you can make a homemade marinade for your feta. Now if you marinate it, obviously rather than putting the herbs inside the feta when you're making it, you will marinate it in the herbs and oil. So it comes across with completely different taste. Again, you can put whatever herbs in, you can use whatever oil you want, which will again vary greatly. Some people will put chilies in there, whatever. And if you marinate this stuff, it'll last for ages in the fridge. The longest I've left one in is probably like a bit over a month, and the cheese seems to stay fine. Same as if I put it in a vacuum seal bag, so it's a good way to go. Here's how to do it. So first of all, cut your 1 block of freshly made feta cheese into small cubes. Whatever size, I'd say, I think mine were roughly 1 cm across. And you choose a jar, a reasonable sized jar, and then use canola oil or whatever, and choose your herbs, and literally just stick it all in the same jar basically. Now what I did here was a slight variation, only because I had some left over. I had bought jars of goat cheese from the supermarket, and goat cheese is amazing. I've yet to try to make goat cheese. I need to get a hold of like a lot of goat's milk, because we do sell them at our work and like supermarkets and stuff, but they come in very small bottles, so there's really not enough unless you spend a lot of money on it. But what you can do is, I had some leftover jars of oil, and me being the type that never likes to waste food and stuff, or edibles, I kept these jars full of oil, and they had herbs and whole ground peppercorns and stuff in them already. After I ate the goat cheese, they've just been sitting in my fridge. So all I did to make this marinade is I literally took, because that jar that you can see in the bottom of the screen there, that is a container that was used to hold all this oil that had previously marinated a whole lot of goat feta cheese. So now I'm literally just going to chuck that in with all the herbs and stuff in there, in with my cubes of feta cheese, and bam, I will have marinated feta. So if you look closely, you can just tell by looking at it, it looks just like store cheese, if not fresher, and if not better, and the texture is smoother and nicer, and like you can feel the difference when you taste it in your mouth too. But anyway, there you go, there's marinated, herbed, and normal feta cheese. Straight up deliciousness. I'll see you next time.